Well, good afternoon, Assembly Member Griffin.
Thank you.
I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to speak for the Environmental Conservation Committee. My name is Colleen Boland, and I'm a native of Corning, New York, and a current resident of Trumansburg in Tompkins County. I'm here to urge the committee to adopt the strongest possible climate change legislation with the fastest possible timeline to address the ongoing climate crisis, which is now a national security emergency. Of the various proposed bills, the one that represents the best response to this emergency, unfortunately, is not the Climate and Community Protection Act, but rather the New York Off-Fossil Fuel Act. The OFF Act calls for a 2030 deadline for 100% renewable energy from all sources. I would like to address this issue as a military veteran and on behalf of Veterans for Climate Justice. I served 4 years in the U.S. Army and then in the U.S. Air Force, from which I retired as a Senior Master Sergeant. While on active duty, I traveled to over 20 countries. In a later position at Cornell University, I traveled to other nations, including to Syria. Many of these countries were places where drinking water was scarce and made children sick. I saw firsthand how climate change and other environmental calamities breed conflict, threaten security, and drive social instability. Later, I helped organize a sustained civil disobedience campaign to halt dangerous natural gas storage in salt caverns at Seneca Lake. In that fight, I used all the skills I learned in the military and while on assignment in the White House's National Space Council under Bush I's administration. Our campaign resulted in more than 650 arrests and generated worldwide press and attention. Other U.S. military veterans were part of this struggle, just as we are now on the front lines of climate justice fights throughout the United States. In fact, one of our many blockade lines at Seneca Lake consisted entirely of veterans from all branches of the military. I myself was arrested and charged with disorderly conduct for my actions on that day. As a soldier and airman who served my country faithfully, I earned many medals, including one for good conduct. But I'm most proud of my charges of disorderly conduct, which I received for taking a stand against fossil fuel buildup on domestic soil at Seneca Lake. We won that fight. The plans to expand natural gas storage were canceled. And thanks to our DEC, LPG storage permits were denied, and the plan for propane storage was also canceled. In July 2015, the U.S. Department of Defense released a major report documenting how climate change is a security risk because, and I quote, "it degrades living conditions, human security, and the ability of governments to meet the basic needs of their populations." Just last month, the Pentagon followed up with another report focused on the impact of climate change on military readiness, noting that 2/3 of our nation's domestic military bases are now threatened by flooding, drought, and other extreme conditions that are driven by climate instability. On the heels of this report came another from our nation's intelligence community. In its annual assessment of worldwide threats to global stability, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence named climate change as a source of global chaos, posing risks that are, and again I am quoting here, likely to fuel competition for resources, economic distress, and social discontent through 2019 and beyond. As a reminder to all of us here, the DNI is comprised of 17 federal agencies, all charged with gathering and analyzing the intelligence necessary to conduct foreign relations and national security activities. In sum, climate change is first and foremost a human rights issue, but as we now understand, the climate crisis is also a national security crisis. What climate scientists call data, we in the military call intelligence. Good data is good intelligence. A stable climate creates the conditions for stable governments and stable geopolitics. Loading up our atmosphere with heat-trapping carbon, including methane, creates the conditions for violence. Working for peace requires working for decarbonization and renewable energy. That is why I, along with many other veterans, am called to serve the climate justice movement and to fight for renewable energy. I call on my beloved home state of New York to lead the way and respond to this crisis with resolve, alacrity, and seriousness of purpose. The scientists tell us that we have only 10 years to implement meaningful solutions and that only political foot-dragging, not technical limitations, are preventing us from mounting a response fast enough to avoid unfixable consequences. Failure is not an option. It wasn't when I was on active duty, and it is not now. With a new legislature in Albany, I am hopeful that New York is finally willing to address the massive scale of the climate crisis. We veterans know something about rapid mobilization in response to life-threatening emergencies, and we stand ready to help. But we need legislation that rapidly catalyzes the transformation of our energy system away from all fossil fuels and toward a system that respects life, health, and national security. To this end, the best of all the plans before you is not the incremental Climate and Community Protection Act, which gets us only halfway there. It's the New York Off Act. Thank you very much for hearing me out.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for your service for climate justice. And also, it was interesting to hear the point of view that you have as a veteran and that your group has as veterans.
Well, I would encourage you and the committee, if you have an opportunity, to watch a documentary called Age of Consequences.
Age of Consequences. Okay.
And everyone out there as well. It is extraordinary, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much.